Welcome back, everyone. This is WWE 2015, How I Would Book It. We are now at Smackdown and drawing ever so closer to the Royal Rumble at the end of January. Right now we are starting with the pre-show. As you see, Jack Swagger gets a win, the Matadors, Hideo Itami. I'm just going to say that Hideo Itami, the only reason why Hideo Itami is up is, once again, I mentioned this in a previous video, that the game is a lot different than real life, and it is not so much a two-way street as it's based on morale levels, and if a talent thinks they're ready to come up and you don't want to bring them up, they'll get mad at you, and you'll have to pay them and pay them and pay them and pay them and pay them when they come up. Thing number 2, Stardust. See, on Raw, I put Goldust in a one-on-one contest against Jimmy Uso, and Goldust won. I wanted to give Dolph Ziggler back his win, and I thought him and Stardust would have a good match, so I decided to book Dolph versus Stardust to not only give Stardust a match in singles competition, but also to give Dolph a win. So, and the match actually did pretty good, which gives maybe some hope for Stardust as a single superstar. Highlights of Raw, as I've said in the past, I've always been a big supporter of the Raw Rebound and the Smackdown Rebound, highlighting the big events from Raw or Smackdown to give, I think it gives the fans more of a reason to watch the show next week, because they see big things that they missed. They're more likely to want to tune in next week. Seth Rollins, I will say that the consistent segments of Seth Rollins shown backstage talking on his cell phone will pay off, will get to the payoff sooner rather than later. They've been building and building and building for weeks now, but they will get to the payoff sooner rather than later. And I think some people may know where the payoff leads. The Big Show in a squash match against David Otunga. The reason why I did this is because David Otunga has not been featured at all and on programming, and I just felt it necessary to feature him, to give him an opportunity to show what he can do. Give him some TV time, rather, because we know what he can do, and it's not much. No offense to David Otunga, but whatever. Now we move to the next segment. Ric Flair is here. Ric Flair, if you missed Raw, showed up on Raw and had a confrontation with Mr. Money in the Bank, Seth Rollins, and that led to Ric Flair putting his name in the hat to manage John Cena at Royal Rumble. Now we move to a segment where Dean Ambrose is interviewed about his match coming up at the Royal Rumble against Bray Wyatt, and Dean is insisting that the match against Bray needs to be a match to end all matches, because the two of them killed each other at TLC. And they need, not TLC, the first Raw of 2015, and the Royal Rumble is going to be the end of the feud, so Dean is basically putting over the fact that he's okay with, not walking out if it means Bray's right there with him getting stretchered out of the Royal Rumble. Now we continue as we move further backstage or somewhere else backstage as John Cena and Ric Flair are talking about the events that we saw take place this past Monday night on Raw, and they are discussing the plans for the Royal Rumble as Rick will be managing John for the Triple Threat WWE World Heavyweight title match. The Nation of Domination against the Usos. Mark Henry and D'Lo win. This is going to lead to the Nation versus the Dust Brothers at Royal Rumble for the WWE World Tag Team titles, which also leads to this next segment. That little pop-up was just a road agent encouraging me to change Mark's gimmick, which I will in between videos. Post-match, Mark and D'Lo call out Stardust and Goldust, and though it does not say it here, they do accept the challenge for Royal Rumble, and it leads to a big brawl between both teams. Now we're backstage, and The Miz is with Mizdow, and The Miz is blaming Mizdow for Miz's loss to Sheamus on Raw, saying that if Mizdow actually was a competent stunt double, personal assistant, whatever you want to call him, he would have helped Miz and stopped Cesaro from interfering. But Mizdow did not. And Miz tells Mizdow to prove his worth tonight against Cesaro. Speaking of Cesaro, Booker T interview, we go to a Cesaro interview with Booker T, where Cesaro is basically talking about how he feels like The Miz is mistreating Mizdow, and Mizdow needs to step up and, be a man about it and stand on his own 2 feet. Sort of like what Christian was standing up to Miz about a couple weeks ago on the Smackdown video when The Miz and Mizdow were on Christian's Peep Show. And this is also going to intensify the rivalry between Miz and Cesaro. Now we move to this match, the Divas match, Paige versus Layla. And Paige wins. The reason why I did this... Okay, fine. There was no reason. There was no reason. Now we move backstage to... The Divas match was just a filler. Now we just move backstage. The Authority are backstage. We aren't even in the locker room for a minute before we get kicked out of the locker room by J&J security, because every time we try and find out what Seth Rollins and the Authority are planning, we get kicked out of the locker room. Because they are trying their damnedest, and by the way, great segment by the Authority. They are trying their damnedest to keep this between them. Pardon me, I'm just sliding around the camera. Between them and keeping it away from anybody else finding out what they are planning to do. But once again, like Seth talking on his phone, this will pay off sooner rather than later. Paul Heyman is out and is talking about Ric Flair being involved now. Now, Paul Heyman is out and he is talking about Ric Flair getting involved in the Triple Threat World title match at Royal Rumble, and basically Paul expressing his opinion on Ric Flair. I think Paul Heyman is one of the few non-wrestlers that I can give complete and total freedom and just tell him, talk about the Royal Rumble. Talk about Flair's involvement now and how that'll affect the match, but, so on and so forth. But I bet Paul Heyman wasn't expecting Ric Flair to show his face. Much like Paul Heyman's segment Paul Heyman's promo in the segment previous, I would give Paul and Rick complete control over what they say, and I would just tell them, talk about the Royal Rumble. And have Paul bring up Brock's history with Ric Flair, and the fact that when Brock was here the first time, one of the first people that Brock took out was Ric Flair, which is actually true. One of the first feuds Brock had was Ric Flair. I would say between 2002 and 2003, he took out Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, and The Undertaker. So Ric Flair has a history with Brock Lesnar, and I want to use that to maybe tie in a little bit more to the feud. Roman Reigns versus Kofi Kingston, a match lacking in anything and everything, not very good, and a very disappointing match from Kofi and Reigns. I thought it was going to get a lot better, but it didn't. We move backstage as Seth Rollins expresses his opinion on the segment, on 2 segments ago, with Paul Heyman and Ric Flair talking about the Triple Threat WWE World Heavyweight title match at the Royal Rumble. And Seth Rollins, more cocky, continuing to get a bigger ego and more cocky, is also playing to the idea that he's hiding something, and that he has a plan for the Royal Rumble. And then he finishes it off saying, "There is no doubt in my mind, Booker T, that come the Royal Rumble, I will not only be Mr. Money in the Bank, I will not only be the undisputed future of the WWE, but I will also be walking out of the Royal Rumble the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion." And now we move to the anticipated match of the night, Cesaro versus Mizdow, which, much like Reigns versus Kofi, slightly disappointed with this match. The reason why I decided to end the match via countout is because The Miz came out and took Mizdow out of the ring and distracted Mizdow from getting back into the ring to make sure Mizdow lost. Because before The Miz made his way out to the ring, it looked like Mizdow was going to win. Before Miz pulled him out, it looked like Mizdow was going to win. But Miz, not to be upstaged, pulled Mizdow out of the ring and got him counted out to allow Cesaro to get the victory. This led to Miz This led to The Miz. This led to Cesaro trying to get his hands on The Miz for screwing up the match, but Miz getting away. Following a commercial break, we end up backstage, and Miz and Mizdow are arguing again because Miz is saying he made Mizdow everything he is. Without Miz, Mizdow would be nothing more than a jobber on the lower card, barely even being featured on the show. He would be Miz is saying that Mizdow would be a nothing without The Miz. If it wasn't for The Miz, Mizdow would be nothing. And he basically tells Mizdow, figure out where his loyalty lies by Monday night, or he's fired, and he can go back to being a nothing. Now we move to something that I said earlier. I'm going to see how it works, and either A, I'm going to be doing it on both Raw and Smackdown, or I'm just going to be doing it on Smackdown, or I'm just going to be doing it on Raw. If this match gets better than it did on Raw, then I'm going to be doing it on Smackdown only, which means Daniel Bryan would only be featured on Smackdown, that's it. Just like I usually only feature Rusev on Raw. Because I feel like featuring the talent once a week allows the talent not to get tired out as quick in the fans' eyes. And makes it more special when the fans see them. But that's just me. That's the old school perspective I have. By the way, this is what I like to call the Daniel Bryan Open Challenge, where Daniel Bryan comes out every night, or for every match, and he issues an open challenge to the roster. Tonight, the open challenge was accepted by Goldust. And by the way, this match did tremendously better. Getting an 83 as opposed to a 67 on Raw. This match did tremendously better than it did on Raw. I am very happy, and this just shows the talent that not only what Daniel Bryan has, but what Goldust has, and his ability to put forth a very good match. And I am very happy with the match that I'm seeing. I mean, with what I'm seeing right here. And this could lead to a big match for Goldust. Till next time, guys. Thanks for joining me.